My name is Vincent Mejan. I have over 18 years of experience in the IT infrastructure and mainly as an MSP. So I've worked at an MSP in several roles, mainly as a DevOps and architect role. And I was actually responsible for designing scalable solutions in cloud, Microsoft Cloud. So in the early beginnings of CSP, when the program just started and launched, and Azure was in the very early beginnings, actually the first portal version we have used, and think about Business Productivity Suite, so the predecessor of Microsoft 365, we were running into roadblocks in getting those solutions scalable and maintainable. So what we did is we worked towards an automation solution that could make it possible for us to scale, standardize, but most importantly, still tailor to the customer's needs, because that was important to us. We often saw solutions that were built to automate from a technical perspective. So you were able to deploy a solution, but it was not actually specified specifically to the customer's need. So as Henry Ford allegedly said, if I have asked people what they wanted, they would have said faster horses. And it's more or less the same with cloud. So if you would just look at cloud as a mechanism to relaunch of, for example, virtual machines, and again, start counting cores and memory and all the other things and moved it in, then you probably are going to use cloud in a different, in an incorrect way. So all these stories about the technology and the automation and the different market approach is something we actually, in of course a different form because I use this as a metaphor, run into when we had our own MSP business. So we were confronted with many difficulties, which still exist today. When we tried to sell cloud, it was an abundance of credit cards that we needed because there was no automated billing. We couldn't easily report on Azure usage and subscription usage, for example, but it was also very difficult to create standardized solutions. So what you commonly see is that if you do it like that, you treat the cloud as an island. So you repeat the same integration all over again, but you have to build it from scratch all the time. And what we did as that MSP, we went back to the drawing board and said, like, we're going to do everything cloud first, everything. And that doesn't mean that we didn't do servers on-prem. Sounds a little bit strange, but even if we had servers on-prem, they were always managed and connected to the cloud. That cloud was Microsoft Cloud in this case, mainly Azure and Microsoft 365. Now Microsoft 365, then Office 365. And what we did is we built a system that allowed us to build automation in that cloud, which is perfectly suitable for automating because it has an interface that allows you to do so. But we still made possible for the end customer to give us like, okay, these are my requirements. I want this and this solution. And we could always translate that into a standardized solution. We learned from the techniques that we used. We optimized again and again. And that made us tremendously scalable. And you as an MSP probably have access to multiple customer environments because you have delegated access. So you can just hop over portals and you can switch portals and probably you do this every day. But all that portal hopping takes quite a lot of time. The very simple explanation is just setting an email address or even an email policy into multiple tenants. So if you have 20 tenants, for example, it will take you 20 times logging into in and out portals to get things set up. And of course you can script that. You can use PowerShell or any automation technology that you use. But again, that's not self-service. It's not scalable because how are you going to distribute those scripts? How are you going to transfer the knowledge? So it's not easy to use. So what we did is we converged all that logic that we have learned from in the past and moved that into what we call command blocks. And you see a command block on screen right now. So what a command block does is actually a no-code interface. I repeat that, a no-code interface to Microsoft Graph, Azure Arm, so you can also automate things in Azure, and the Partner Center. So if you have those three building blocks, so to say, available as command blocks, and a command block would then mean set email address or add someone to a Teams channel or make it possible to deploy a policy, or get the secure score from any or more tenants. Because that's important to underline. Command blocks do work multi-tenant. So now you have a single interface, a single pane of glass in which you can list all your customers and then, for example, retrieve all the secure scores at once, just in one interface. So you don't have to hop portals, and more importantly, because command blocks are standardized, but still configurable, it makes it possible to repeat over and over again. To show you how this looks like from a user perspective, so now I have selected, in this case, an organization that I'm allowed to manage. So I am, as a partner, managing this customer, and I'm looking at a user and I want to do something with changing the email address. Normally I would need to switch portals, and I have to log into either with delegated access or with a password manager or something into the customer's environment. I have to go to Exchange Online, I have to find the mailbox, I have to find the tab that has the email address settings, and now I'm going to change that. But with command blocks it is way more easy. So you just move to that specific user, and again you can list all the organizations in one view and then step into those environments to switch users. So if you want to have all the users with email addresses, so Exchange Online licenses on your screen, for multiple organizations you can do that. And now I'm stepping into that specific user and I'm going to do something with an email address. I want to set email addresses, so I can select command blocks from a list of available options that are, in this case, available for this tenant. So we also take that into consideration. It makes no sense to launch command blocks that are not licensed, for example, for that environment. So you cannot do anything with Teams if you don't have that enabled. So in this case, I will choose Exchange Online. And you can see that you can easily set email addresses in a friendly interface. So this is very much well usable for end users as well, or for IT departments. I configure the email addresses as I see fit. I execute the command, which we do in real time, meaning that there's no queue or something, so you're looking at the screen while things are happening. So we execute the email address changes directly to the customer's tenant. You don't have to log in, you don't have to switch anything. We just handle all the token management, and we do that by Microsoft standards, meaning with the organization consent, properly done, with your delegated credentials if available. So no trickery, no admin credentials, no nothing. So you don't have to have elevated access. You can be a normal user without any additional access doing this. And you can control, as a partner, which users can execute this in Spinpanel, of course, with more fine-grained roles than you would find in the Partner Center or in Graph. So now the execution is done, the email addresses are set, and are being communicated back to the system. So this is really a time saver. This allows you to do a direct change into multiple tenants quite easily. So if you're a support department and your daily job is to maintain Exchange or Teams environments, for example, then you can quickly switch back and forth without changing all those portals. This is a huge time saver. But this is based on a standardized setup that you might want to change, because this is still a standardized setup that might not work for all your customers, because you see a certain set of setup in the email addresses, because you might need first name, last name instead of first letter, last name or something. So that probably is something you want to configure as well. So the most important thing about this is time saving. Now, think about that Netflix story again. What they did is they transformed the DVD service into a streaming service. What if you could build your own solutions that are scalable and easy to maintain over multiple tenants, quite easily from a single view, and do all the things that I just explained with, for example, the Exchange addresses, but then think about everything you can do in Graph, things you can do in Partner Center, and even ARM, so deploy a VM or deploy your Azure SQL database, for example. Think about that, but then fully configurable. That is what command blocks in command sets do. So what are command sets? We have a numerous amount of command blocks available for you, so you can use those immediately. Again, time saver. But now, you probably want to build your own solution. This is why we divert from most platforms, because most platforms allow you to do technical management, technical enablement, help you save time, help you save cost. That's more like the pitch. We want you to build a solution and allow you to build a solution that serves that particular end customer or group of end customers. Meaning that if you use Spinpanel, you build your IP into those command sets and command blocks. So what this does is it allows you to bundle multiple command blocks, but now override parameters as you see fit. And with that, I mean, you can set those parameters even in a flexible way so that you can reuse them. And then you start composing. So you mix and match command blocks that suit your scenario. And as you can see in the picture, this is actually what it comes down to. This is your IP. This is what you build like a modern workplace or a specific server environment that you have set up or a security setup that you want to configure. So you can think of literally everything. And the most beautiful thing about this is that you can also add your own non-Microsoft products if you want to into this, and then read back from our APIs or Power Automate to automate on that further again. So you can even use that technology. So how does that look like? So first of all, we had our command blocks, a list of endless possibilities. Now, you can add command sets yourself, or you can use command sets that we have built for you and customize from there. So you see a couple of options on the screen, like onboarding and some security setup, so that you can use, of course. And they contain a curated list of command blocks that are ready to go and probably fit a lot of scenarios out of the box. But if you now want to customize on that, that's quite easy to do. Take the example of Intune. If you look at Intune and you have 100 Intune tenants, it's a lot of hassle to manage those 100 Intune tenants. If you just want to set a policy, and in this case I'm going to set a Teams policy, if I want to do that, I need to do a 100 times login into each and every portal, go through the policies, make some configurations, assign them to groups, assign them to users, whatever you want to do. But with this setup, you can configure that policy once, because that policy on itself is living in a command block, and you can see that it can quite easily customize that with placeholders. Because in the bottom section of the screen, you see a placeholder that dictates, in this case, that only Teams members from the same tenant are allowed to do something with this setup. And this is how you can easily wildcard specifically policies, for example. So now you have set up a Teams policy, which is ready to go according to your standards. And this is a very simplistic scenario just to explain how this works. But of course, you can create more complex policies, and now you can deploy them at once to multiple tenants. That means that you can prep all those tenants and push down those policies and actually keep them in a certain compliance state. So think about this as desired state for Intune policies. So that's how you can use command sets. Back to the email addresses. So I'm taking that as an example again to explain how easy it is to enforce a policy. So in the previous examples, you saw me setting an email address which hard-coded values because I was doing that from a certain user. So that makes sense that I then see the values of that user. But that probably doesn't work if you want to apply this policy to multiple tenants because, well, that takes away the scalability. You have to do that all over again then. So what you can do with that email address policy is, you see it on the screen over here. You can start using placeholders. And those placeholders will make sure that if you deploy a new tenant or even modify an existing tenant, to make it sure that all the settings that you see on the screen, so first name, last name, @domain, and so on, first letter, last name, @domain, and so on, that those are being pushed down as an email policy. While this is all being executed, we give you a multi-tenant view because you see different organizations and different users now, instead of the one user that I was configuring, which was my time saver option. You now see that I have this in a multi-tenant setup. So I'm actually getting real-time feedback from all the actions that are running in my tenants, over multiple users even, because we have an extensive audit trail, which also makes sure that we tap into what happens into Graph and to Partner Center, communicate it back to a platform. So you as a user, as a partner, will see everything that happens in regards to the execution of command blocks and changes in tenants. And you can see it on the screen right now. All the executions are being logged and are visible. And of course, if you then select a job, we have the history of that job so you can track the changes, what have been changed on that particular user. So now you see the actual transformation of the wildcard back into real values. Now, that might not be enough, the placeholders, because how powerful they are, that's great, but probably you want to take a next step even. And that is what we call naming policies. So you can set naming policies that allow you to formalize how, for example, groups are being created. So think about department or city dash and then the group name, or always needs to be some prefix in letters or numbers that you want to use. Those are things you can do in our platform. And Azure AD supports this as well on groups, but we support it on everything. So if you want to do this, then create your naming policies, and then you can start from scratch with a new organization, and we populate it for you with the naming policies that you have set. So if you mix and match that with the wildcard support we have, you can build the most extensive command sets that you can think about. What's important to note is about those command sets and the command blocks is that they're authorized specifically on a functional level. So if you think about, for example, the Exchange command blocks or the Exchange command sets, if you would build them, that is separated from the access to, for example, Teams. We can also separate the logic between reader and executor. We can also separate the logic between someone that creates the command set and someone that executes it. And that's very important because you as a partner can set up command sets that contain your IP. You don't want to give that away to anyone. So that IP is locked in the command sets. But you can still allow end users or IT departments of end users to execute these command sets exactly according to your standards. So now you can offer them a ready-to-go solution, for example, for user onboarding. And while command set is so easy to use, it's just literally click, run, wait for the execution, and then log back to the system, that you could even ask the HR department to do a user onboarding because you already did the hard work. You did the templating, you did the configuration, and you used all the power that we have in our platform to do it quite easily because you didn't script anything. You just configured all the parameters that you need to set. And we make sure that everything is handled on the token handling, on the execution on the tenant. So we make sure that all happens in the background and communicate back to you. So what can you do from this point on? Again, where we differ as a platform is the way you set up IP. We orchestrate Microsoft. So it's not that you copy things into a platform. So, well, we hope you like everything I showed you, but still, if you don't use Spinpanel anymore, everything will just keep working as is, besides the automation, of course, because we just orchestrate Microsoft. So everything we do is done according to Microsoft rules, and everything that you need to do in regards to the authorization and security is done in the end user's tenant. So that means you use the power of the Microsoft platform, but you use Spinpanel as the ultimate automation and templating tool to do so. By using our technology, using the Microsoft Cloud, and using your IP, because you as an MSP are the trusted advisor, you know what the customer wants. You have the experience. Now you just need a tool to make it more scalable, and that's what Spinpanel can offer you. That's what we can help you with. So to end my presentation, thank you for your time, and if you have any questions, just let me know. My email address and LinkedIn is in this sheet, so happy to answer any questions you have. Thank you so much for your time.